Yo, what's going on? Welcome back to a new YouTube video. So as you can see from the title below, let's dive right in. So obviously reading this title sounds pretty simple, let go of comfort, obviously you level up in life. But it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy as it sounds. Yes, it sounds nice, especially in today's era when, people love using buzz terms like, oh, lock in, 6 months, all you need, all that stuff. But they don't really break down in terms of the things you have to let go of. It sounds nice, but the work required to do those certain things, you actually have to put effort towards them. You actually have to be intentional. So with that being said, man, I want to take you guys to an experience that I had recently in terms of letting go of the specific comfort in my life that forced me to level up in terms of, building my business, in terms of leveling up as a person and an individual, but also just letting go of the version of myself that always escaped to comfort, and being and holding on to this older version of myself. So when it came to growing up, one thing I always loved a lot, I really loved, was gaming. Now, when I say this in terms of like me letting this go, it wasn't necessarily because the games were bad, but I had to realize that what were the games like doing? Like how, like why was I returning to gaming, when things got difficult, all that stuff, right? What you have to realize in terms of comfort is it's just you simply escaping to something when you don't like the reality that you're living. But the problem with that is it creates this loop, this endless cycle that you don't even know, or you're aware of, or maybe you are, but it creates that endless loop in terms of why your life is going the way it is, in terms of when reality hits, when certain moments in your life are getting difficult, and you find ways, instead of facing it head on, you find ways to kind of go around it. You find ways to escape it. But you can only prolong that for so long until something fucking eventually happens in your life. And most of the time, guys, it has to be something like, it always has to be something negative to then have people stop whatever comfort that they're escaping to. And then that's when things change. But the thing is with that, guys, is you don't want to put yourself in a situation where that's what it takes for you to level up. So in my case, when it came to gaming, the one thing for me was I knew I had plans to move to a different state. You know what I mean? And I knew in terms of being in that state, I have to be a different version of myself, not the version that I was currently at that moment. And one of the decisions I decided to do was sell my PS5. Now, keep in mind, I've had this shit before. I had this shit before early on, right before college and then during college. So, I had to recognize before moving out and all that stuff, I had to come up with a plan. I had to come up with a plan in terms of getting myself out of this loop, because like I said, like obviously I rebought it, but also understanding like why I was. And the funny thing I come in terms to was the fact that it was always in moments of discomfort. It was always moments of discomfort. One example was when I wasn't a part of my collegiate team. When I wasn't a part of that, what did I run to? What did I escape to? Comfort. Me knowing that I wasn't gonna be on the team, but there were still ways to get myself onto a team, by actually redoing the classes, all that stuff, and then you're back to being eligible. What did I run to? I ran back to the game. That's what had me buy it the second time around. But even the first time, what comfort was I living in? I was in the reality of not being part of my team anymore, No, my apologies. One, it was finding another college after my previous college got closed down. My girlfriend at the time, me and her splitting up, and then on top of that, just having problems in terms of figuring out jobs. This was around the pandemic, so during that time and having that system, that's the thing I would escape to, rather than face shit head on and actually have plans to actually elevate my life, plans to, work around in terms of like upgrading my life, finding a new school, all that stuff. I was staying in comfort. And the first time when I sold it around, guess what happened? I elevated the best version of myself to tackling the challenge head on, understanding that, okay, this breakup happened. What am I gonna do about it? Okay, my school closed down. Let's find, and obviously I was a part of the team. Now let's look around and see what options I have in terms of any colleges around. What coaches, reach out to some coaches. And guess what ended up happening? I actually, working on my physique, as always, which I always think is the first core route, is always working on the physique. And that's never been a problem for me, but it was understanding of letting go of certain comforts. So going back to that story, what happened was I actually, continued grinding in the gym, distract myself off of mine, off the breakup. And on top of that, I sold my shit because I realized I need to focus my attention, my time. And this shit doesn't serve me. I can't just keep escaping to this, And from there, I ended up being on a men's league team, still searching for a school. And what happened during like a summer, a person I saw during one practice during that men's league ended up being the head coach, see me play from the few times we interacted, and I was able to have an opportunity to speak to him directly, letting him know my situation in terms of searching for a school. He happened to be the head coach, and boom, before you know it, we're in talks, we're in communication. He's seeing how I play, obviously. He's interested, recruited me, applied, boom, got on the team. Just like that. Just by taking rather than escaping and being in comfort, I took action, I took steps. I became a version that I appreciated. And obviously I got it back again due to other things, of course, fucking up, put myself back into this situation. But what did I decide to do after that shit? I decided to rebuy that shit in escape of the reality of not being in the team anymore. Finding, in terms of looking for a job, didn't have a car. I did have one before, but I got into an accident. So then I actually I had to go into living on campus without a car for the first time. And then job hunting on top of that, and figuring out how I'm going to make income while living out here, while living in the dorms and shit. And what did I fucking use to escape the reality I was facing? Get in the system again. So now bringing it back to moving to the state, I had to realize that the PS5 ain't the problem. It's why I'm going to this shit when reality gets tough, when reality gets fucking hard. Let alone already battling a vice in terms of the lust. It's also understanding that it's not the PS5 that's the problem. It's not the games that are the problem. I'm in an ecosystem to where when difficult situations happened in my life, I chose comfort. I chose things to escape to. And one of those things that amplified that was fucking gaming. You know? So rather, even grinding and all that stuff in terms of fitness and all that stuff, I was going back and forth with myself because I didn't understand the true ecosystem, the true root in terms of why I kept escaping to comfort through the thing I purchased back, which was the system. But not only that, it's like just running away from the reality that I was facing, that I had to actually understand that I have to build a version of myself that propels me forward, that doesn't keep me stuck. And I had to realize that I already know the answer in terms of what I need to do in terms of the system. But now I need to come up with a game plan in terms of working towards a better version of myself. So the moment I sold that shit again, I had to understand, the second time around, I had to understand why I was doing this. Why, in terms of understanding that this shit was a loop, and where was the root problem through this? Was the lust. So the only way I was able to break that shit was to, one, understand why I was going back to this shit. And I had to understand that I knew what I needed to do. So once I sold that shit, the system again, it's like you have to understand that breaking those chains are gonna reset that loop factor. You know, breaking the chain is gonna offset that loop factor that keeps happening within your life. That's just my example, but whatever it is in your life, that's the loop cycle that you have to break for you. Because you have to realize that the best version of yourself, that comfort, that thing holding you back, isn't going to be the answer in terms of becoming that best version of yourself. It's not going to serve you any purpose doing it. So once you understand, once you start breaking this cycle, you know, whatever it is, once you give up the thing that's really holding you back. Take it for example, like drinking. You know, you stop going out to these bars and all this stuff with drinks. You stop hanging around people who drink, you know, or don't put it in your vicinity. You know, if you have a place for yourself and you got bottles, you empty them immediately. Once you do that, that's where the building phase can come to light. But the thing is, now you have to understand that you kind of have to just replace it now. Now you have to replace that thing holding you back to something that serves the best version of yourself. Something that serves whatever thing you want to have going for your life, you know? So now we start thinking in terms of, okay, what certain things can put me in a better predicament in terms of my future, so that then I can operate in the highest frequency within that craft. Once I understood that and took the initial steps into going towards that better version of myself, that's where opportunities came in. That's where my business was actually like coming to light. That's when I had opportunities in terms of meeting certain people that elevated my business in terms of understanding the back end systems and how to operate at that level. That's when I understood in terms of where my attention was going and where to prioritize it in terms of my day-to-day life. Because if you don't if you're waking up late and you don't know in terms of what direction you're heading towards, and you have no intentions, that's where you realize that something's holding you back, and it's for sure a vice that's having you escape back to this comfort cycle that you've been having for years. That's when you truly understand that your attention is going to the things that are holding you back the most, and you're escaping to it every single time life gets difficult. So with me, when it came to the gym, always having that, but things didn't necessarily amplify my physique because I had certain things holding me back. But once I got rid of that shit, that's when I really became more lean. That's when I really became more lean. That's where I actually build muscle. And it was a very apparent within my physique, within my face, all that stuff. And in terms of the business, guys, it was waking up in the morning with pure intention of people waiting on me for guidance, for help, for accountability. So taking that comfort away, not escaping that reality, helped me perform better in terms of my business. And for guys who are new in this channel, I do one-on-one coaching in terms of fitness, in terms of mindset. So if you're someone who's interested, there'll be a link down below. But going back to my point, it made me operate in a different level. It enhanced my performance within my craft, to where now in terms of the challenges that I faced throughout, I was able to attack it head on. Not escaping to reality, not chickening out when things got tough, to be able to stick through it and persevere and push myself to understanding that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. As long as I keep pushing myself. Even when it came to this with YouTube, and making sure that I was on point in terms of uploading, in terms of, uploading shorts daily, all that stuff. Giving valuable information for people who I know need it. Letting go of that comfort is enabling me to push myself into this version of myself, to be able to provide value to you guys on the daily. To provide myself in terms of being on point in my fitness, being able to coach other guys thoroughly with no hiccup in between. And that's where I had to realize that there is no room for comfort when it comes to leveling up, especially with the people that I communicate with now compared to the people I used to before. Because once I realized that everything in my life, let alone selling the PS5 and all that shit, everything that surrounded that version of myself before becoming a newer version of myself, all that was through comfort. All the relationship I built was through comfort. But once I stopped distracting myself and running away and escaping back to comfort, once I took myself out of that and faced reality head on to be able to control my life, that's when actual shit changed. And it can be the same for you. It can be the exact same for you. But you have to realize the one thing that's holding you back. Be honest with yourself. And then the next steps would be, what do you have to do? And keep in mind, when you ask yourself this, and then you figure out what it is, you know what you have to do. You know what you have to do. And that's 80% of your answer right there. But it's that 20% that you have to realize why this loop keeps happening. It's that 20% that you have to really dive deep to understand once you do, that is the only way you'll be able to break that loop. It's that 20% of asking yourself, why does this keep happening? And how is it affecting my day-to-day life in terms of the relationships I build with people, the relationship I build within myself, and my inner core values? That's when you'll figure out all the problems that are happening within your life. But if you don't get yourself out of that loop, you'll continue to escape to comfort when difficult times matter. And guys, you don't want to be in the position where something terrible happens for you to actually do something about it. You don't want to wait until something terrible happens. You don't need to. You can start today. And I highly recommend you start today, because the sooner you do, the sooner your life just becomes better in all areas, in all facets. And that's when you'll truly live life to the fullest. Because we have one in this fucking lifetime, man. One. And you have to understand that shit's precious, man. Don't waste God's gift for you to truly like do something in this life. Don't waste it. Don't waste any second of it towards comfort. Because the more you do, the more later on in life you'll just regret that shit. But that's what I wanted to share in terms of this video, guys. I hope this video gave you so much gems and so much value in terms of understanding why you just have to let go of that comfort. You have to just finally submit and say, I'm starting today. I'm done with this shit. And find where your time is actually going, and then actually come up with a game plan. Because wherever you end up, wherever you want to go within this life is going to require that level up in terms of your mind, mindset, frame, physicality, all that stuff. In becoming the best version of yourself is required for you to let go of comfort for good. Not half-assing it, not going back to comfort like I did the second time around. Just, you have to finally get rid of it immediately. But that's all for today's video, guys. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to definitely like, comment, subscribe. Definitely comment down below, in terms of the things you're facing right now, and, share to people, or things you overcame, just for people to see when they come across this video. But until next time, guys, peace.